All right, so today we're diving into some pretty mind-bending stuff, near-death experiences, or NDEs as they're called.
Hmm.
I know you're especially curious about what happens during cardiac arrest,
Right.
which is great because our main source for this deep dive
Hmm.
is a 2024 study
Okay.
that looked at a whole bunch of NDE research.
Interesting.
So think of it as like uh, our cheat sheet to the latest science,
Yeah.
but specifically on cardiac arrest.
Yeah.
So we're comparing, apples to apples.
It's a really helpful resource to kind of see where the research is at.
Yeah, exactly. And just to be clear up front, we're not here to like prove or disprove heaven or hell or anything like that.
Right.
We're just going to follow the facts and see where they lead us.
I like it.
So let's start with the basics. What exactly is a near-death experience?
So it's basically a profound psychological event that can happen when someone's life is in serious danger.
Okay.
Think intense feelings, strange sensations,
Mm-hmm.
even perceptions that seem to go beyond normal consciousness.
Okay, so not just your average daydream.
Right, exactly.
But how often are we talking here? Are NDEs a rare thing, or are they more common than people realize?
Well, that's where things get a little bit fuzzy because research shows anywhere from about 6% to almost 40% of people who survive cardiac arrest report having an NDE.
Whoa, that's a huge range.
Yeah.
What's going on there? Why is it so hard to pin down an exact number?
Well, there's a few things. First, NDEs are really personal experiences.
Okay.
Hard to define in a way that fits everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine trying to describe a dream. It's super subjective.
Right.
And plus, the way scientists ask about NDEs varies from study to study.
Uh-huh.
Some use in-depth interviews while others rely on questionnaires.
Ah, so the tools they're using could be influencing the results.
Exactly.
It's almost like some people might not even realize they had an NDE unless they were asked about specific details.
Yeah, exactly. And then you've got the human factor.
Mhm.
Some people might just be hesitant to share such a personal experience,
Right.
especially if they worry about sounding crazy or being judged.
That makes total sense. It's not exactly something you bring up at a dinner party, right?
Right.
Pass the potatoes.
Mhm.
Oh, by the way, I saw a tunnel of light.
Exactly.
But let's get down to the nitty-gritty. How are scientists even starting to study something as mysterious as NDEs?
That is the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the good news is that research is getting a lot more rigorous.
Okay.
Like in 2022, a set of guidelines for studying death and recalled experiences of death were published.
Okay.
And this was to help make sure everyone's on the same page when they're doing research.
Yeah. Gotcha. So like establishing a common language for NDE research.
Exactly.
Okay, so scientists are getting organized. But how do they know an NDE is different from, say, like a vivid dream someone has while they're in a coma?
That is the tricky part.
Yeah.
Because distinguishing an NDE from other experiences that can happen during a coma, like dreams or delirium, can be super tough.
Right.
It's not always a clear line in the sand,
Mm-hmm.
but that's where some recent breakthroughs are really exciting.
Oh, tell me more.
So in 2023, researchers discovered unique brain activity patterns that were linked to consciousness during cardiac arrest.
Wow.
And they measured this using an EEG.
So even when the heart stops, the brain might still be humming along.
It seems that way.
That changes everything. Does this mean that science is getting closer to understanding what's really happening during an NDE?
It's definitely a big step in that direction because it challenges the idea that consciousness is only possible when the heart is beating.
All right, I'm officially hooked.
Okay.
But what about the NDEs themselves? What are people actually seeing and feeling?
You hear about those classic NDE stories.
Right.
The feeling of peace, the bright light, the out-of-body sensation.
Yeah.
Those are definitely some common themes across the research.
Like the life flashing before your eyes thing.
That one's actually a little less common.
Okay.
But the feeling of peace is almost universal, and often it comes with a sense of being surrounded by light.
Yeah.
And lots of people describe feeling like they're floating above their own body, watching everything from a detached perspective.
Wow, it's starting to sound like those Hollywood movies might actually be onto something.
Right.
But you mentioned earlier that how scientists ask about NDEs can affect the results.
Yeah.
Could that explain why some people have these like really positive experiences while others describe NDEs as like frightening or even disturbing?
You're hitting on a really important point because a lot of the older research relied on scales that mainly focused on positive aspects of NDEs,
Okay.
like the Grayson NDE scale, for example,
Mhm.
which asks about things like seeing a light or feeling a sense of peace.
So they were kind of setting people up to report those kinds of experiences.
Yeah, it wasn't intentional, but it's possible those scales unintentionally missed some of the nuances.
Right.
It's like using a black and white filter to capture a full color scene. You're only getting part of the picture.
Yeah.
That's why researchers have developed newer tools like the NDEC scale,
Okay.
which allows for a broader range of experiences, including negative ones.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That's like assuming everyone's favorite color is blue, just because you only ask people if they like blue or not.
Right.
But let's go back to that 2023 study for a sec.
Okay.
Finding brain activity during cardiac arrest. That's huge.
It is.
Does that mean that like our understanding of consciousness is totally wrong?
It's definitely shaking things up
Okay.
because it supports the idea of what researchers call disconnected consciousness,
Disconnected consciousness.
which is a state where someone isn't fully awake or aware of their surroundings,
Right.
but they're still experiencing some level of self-awareness.
Okay. So
Yeah.
even when the body's essentially shutting down,
Right.
there might still be a part of us that's online, so to speak.
Exactly. And that's where NDEs, especially those happening during cardiac arrest, could offer a unique window into how consciousness works.
It's fascinating.
Like, imagine if we could study this disconnected consciousness state more closely.
Yeah.
What could that tell us about the brain,
Right.
the mind, maybe even what happens after death?
Okay. I'm trying to wrap my head around all this. It seems like we're on the verge of some major breakthroughs here.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears for a minute and talk about the long-term effects of NDEs.
Okay.
Do these experiences change people in like a lasting way?
Absolutely. Studies have shown that people who've had NDEs often experience significant changes in their outlook and behavior even years later.
Wow.
It's not just a fleeting thing, you know?
Really? What kind of changes are we talking about?
Well, think about it. You've just had a brush with death, maybe even felt a sense of peace and connection beyond anything you've ever known.
Right.
It's not surprising that many people report feeling a renewed sense of purpose,
Okay.
a deeper appreciation for life, and a greater connection to nature.
Mm-hmm.
They might also become less materialistic,
Okay.
more compassionate,
Yeah.
and more interested in spiritual matters.
It's like they've been given a second chance and they want to make the most of it.
Exactly. And some people report a profound shift in their values. They may become more focused on personal growth relationships and contributing to the world in a positive way.
That's pretty incredible. It sounds like NDEs can be incredibly transformative.
Yeah, they can be really powerful.
But earlier you mentioned a study that found NDE survivors actually had a higher 30-day mortality rate.
Right.
That seems to contradict everything we've been talking about. What's the deal with that?
That finding definitely raised some eyebrows.
Yeah.
And it's important to remember that correlation doesn't equal causation.
Right.
Just because two things happen around the same time doesn't mean one caused the other.
Yeah.
There could be a whole bunch of other factors at play.
So what could be going on?
Well, it's possible that people who have NDEs might have different underlying health conditions or have experienced more severe cardiac events,
Okay.
which could increase their risk of dying within that 30-day window.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe the medical care they received after their cardiac arrest played a role.
Yeah.
More research is needed to tease out these possibilities.
Okay. So it's a bit of a mystery for now.
Yeah, for now.
But even with that caveat, it's clear that NDEs can leave a powerful and lasting mark on people's lives.
Absolutely. It underscores the fact that these experiences are doubly meaningful, even if you don't fully understand them yet.
Right.
And that brings us back to the big question, what does all of this mean for our understanding of life and death?
Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room, our NDEs, proof of an afterlife.
Well, that is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And honestly, it's a question that science can't definitively answer.
Yeah.
Not yet, anyway.
Okay.
But what is fascinating is that NDEs push us to consider different possibilities about what happens to consciousness when the body dies.
So you're saying we shouldn't rule anything out?
Exactly. It's like we're piecing together a giant puzzle,
Yeah.
and we only have a few pieces right now.
Right.
NDE research is adding some intriguing new pieces to the puzzle,
Yeah.
especially with discoveries like that 2023 study showing brain activity during cardiac arrest, right? It's like we've been working with a black and white puzzle, and suddenly someone throws in a bunch of color pieces.
Yeah.
It changes the whole game.
I like that analogy in those color pieces. They're forcing us to question our old assumptions about consciousness. Maybe it's not simply a product of the physical brain, but something more fundamental, something that might even exist independently of the body.
Okay, my mind is officially blown.
Good.
But before we get lost in the philosophical weeds here, let's bring it back to what stands out to you about all this research? What's
Right.
the biggest takeaway for someone listening who's curious about NDEs?
For me, it's the sheer power of these experiences to change people's lives. We've talked about the increased sense of purpose, the deeper appreciation for life, the shift in
Yeah.
values. I mean, those are profound transformations.
It's like going through a crash course in what really matters.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder if NDEs can have such a profound impact. What does that tell us about the potential of the human mind, even in the face of death? There seems to be this incredible capacity for growth.
For connection, for something that goes beyond our everyday understanding.
It's both humbling and incredibly inspiring.
Yeah.
So for anyone listening who's ready to go down the NDE rabbit hole, where should they start?
Well, the 2024 scoping review we've been talking about is a great place to start to get that big picture view of the research.
Okay.
You can find a link to that in the show notes, along with those 2022 guidelines for studying NDEs. Those are super important for understanding how scientists are approaching this topic rigorously.
Yeah,
And if you're interested in the brain activity stuff, we'll link to that 2023 study as well.
perfect. We'll make sure you have all the resources you need to do your own deep dive.
Yeah, definitely check it out.
But before we wrap up, I have to ask if you could leave our listener with one final thought,
Yeah.
something to really ponder, what would it be?
That's a good one. I think I'd ask if NDEs can produce such profound and lasting changes. What does that tell us about the untapped potential within each of us,
Yeah.
even in the face of life's biggest challenges?
Ooh. I like that it's a reminder that there's always more to discover, both within ourselves and about the world around us. Thanks for taking us on this incredible journey.
It's been my pleasure.
And to you, dear listener, thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep an open mind.
Here.
You never know what amazing discoveries await.